Excerpt from the chapter Gear Hunting. The first time I passed through Calgary, Alberta in 1996, I happened upon a treasure trove at the now sadly deceased Vintage Music Store. I had an afternoon to kill before a show at the university that evening, so I scoured the local phone book for guitar store options. The owner indulged my requests to plug in this and that guitar through this or that amplifier all afternoon. He was a patient man. I was like a kid in a candy store. The place was incredible. Over in this corner was a Magnatone amplifier with pitch warbling vibrato. Behind it was a Dan Electro amp with 8 6-inch speakers, just like the one the great Chicago harmonica player Little Walter used to use. They were asking $175 Canadian. My mind was racing. I can't carry all these home to Australia with me, I thought, after desperately attempting to justify to myself the purchase of each delightful artefact. They'll probably get broken in transit. Then I'll need them to be converted to Australian voltage. Plus, there was the small matter of how little spare money I was in possession of. None, to be precise. The owner of the shop said he might come and see my set at the university that evening when I eventually left. After my show, he came up full of excitement. "You've got to come back to the store. I have something that I think you need to see," he told me. My interest duly piqued. I packed up and followed him back there. He was saying as he opened up the store that he has a few pieces of gear that are in his own personal stash that the local players try to buy from him, but he won't sell. "They're down here. Follow me," he said from behind the counter, before descending down the rickety wooden stairs through a trapdoor into the basement. This all had a bit of the Australian guitarist mysteriously disappears on Canadian tour vibe about it, but then again, guitars. So I followed him into the basement. It had a bare dirt floor, perfect for burying bodies, but I was distracted by the wall of small cases stacked up nearly to the roof by the stairs. "Oh, those are my collection of electric lap steels," he said, noticing my diverted attention. "I don't play them, I just like having them." My God, there had to be 80 or more of them. Gibsons, Fenders, Supros, Nationals, Silvertones. A Premier brand one with a replica of an aquarium made out of clear lucite with plastic goldfish running up alongside the fingerboard. A Magnatone that was covered in dark green mother-of-toilet seat perloid plastic. An incredible collection, enough for weeks of immersive tonal exploration. "Those aren't what I want to show you," he said from the other side of the room. I peered around a support beam, and to my relief he wasn't wearing a GIMP costume, but rather was standing next to an old wooden dobro on a stand. He commenced to tell me that this was the one that scores of local players keep pestering him to buy, but he never wanted to sell it. However, he added, after hearing my set, he decided that I was the person who should own it. Now, this could have been a sales tactic, of course, flattering the markup, lowering their resistance to ponying up the cash. I sat the instrument on my lap and had a play. I knew immediately I was in danger, as it was a sweet-sounding one. I gulped and asked him how much he wanted for it. $1,250 Canadian, a very fair price. Only trouble was I didn't have it. We sat and chewed the fat for a while, talking about music and the various players we dig. Eventually he felt comfortable enough to chide me about how much I stunk when I came into his store that afternoon. "You were ripe, man," he said. I've never had a sense of smell. It took me a long while to work that out too. You don't know what you're missing if you never had it. I can remember playing in the backyard as a young kid and my mother holding up a flower out for me to smell. I'd seen her put her nose up to it and breathe in, so I copied her and experienced nothing at all. But she'd asked, "Doesn't that smell nice?" So I nodded, "Yes, it does." I had no idea what I was meant to be experiencing. In high school, the penny dropped for me with the aid of my old friend, farts. I'd dropped my guts in art class and everyone at the table was carrying on about how rank it smelled. I couldn't smell it, of course, and thought to myself, they're full of it. I felt another one on the way, so I decided to test them by letting it out silently. If they can't hear it, then they won't pretend to smell it, was my reasoning. But smell it they did. "Oh man," they all said, "that was you again." What? How did they know? I was sheepish about having stunk out vintage music that day and vowed to remember my deodorant for the rest of the tour. After thanking him for showing me his private stash of instruments, I went back to the hotel to sleep. I had to drive to a show in Edmonton the next day and then back towards Calgary for a gig in Red Deer before heading east towards Winnipeg. Over the next 2 days, I kept thinking about that dobro. Did I pass up a chance to own a lovely old instrument? I was paid for the 2 subsequent gigs in cash. It was nearly enough. On this, my maiden trip across Canada, I had a driver from Vancouver named Dave with me. I asked if we go back through Calgary to get to Winnipeg. "Not really," Dave told me, "but it wouldn't add too much time to make a detour." I asked him if he could loan me the extra to buy this dobro. He agreed. Picking up the hotel room phone, I called the store. The owner heard my accent on the line, and even before I'd said a word beyond hello, he was on to me. "You've been dreaming about it, haven't you?" "Yes," I admitted. "Yes, I have."